What if I told you that the secret to gaining true power in life is not in speaking louder or reacting faster, but in mastering the art of silence? Not just any silence, but the kind that gives you a sense of freedom, peace, and strength. This idea isn't new. It has been around for centuries and was central to the teachings of Stoicism. Think about it. How often do we see individuals who command the most respect, not because they are the loudest or the most vocal, but because they know when to speak, and perhaps more importantly, when to remain quiet? In the hustle and bustle of our modern lives, silence becomes a tool of immense power, a subtle yet profound force that has the ability to shape our thoughts, relationships, and even our destiny. In a world overwhelmed by constant chatter, noise, and distractions, silence is becoming a rare commodity. Yet, silence is not weakness. It's a weapon of wisdom. It allows you to observe without bias, to respond with clarity, and to act with purpose. Imagine a person who can sit quietly in the midst of chaos, their composure unshaken, their thoughts clear. They don't need to shout to make an impact. The stillness they embody conveys confidence and strength, earning them the respect of others without uttering a word. Silence, in this sense, transforms us. It doesn't just bring inner peace, but also grants us the ability to navigate life with control, perspective, and discernment. The goal of this exploration is to dive deeper into the philosophy of Stoicism, particularly how it encourages us to act as if we have nothing to lose. By embracing this mindset, we can cultivate an inner peace that shields us from the noise and distractions of the world. In doing so, we can learn to harness the power of silence, not only as a way to maintain our own equilibrium, but as a means of influencing others. Stoicism teaches us that true power comes from within, and that power often lies not in the force of our words or actions, but in our ability to remain silent, centered, and in control. Through the lens of Stoic thought, we'll see how silence can be a gateway to both personal mastery and a deeper, more impactful way of engaging with the world around us. Understanding the Stoic philosophy of silence. Stoicism is an ancient Greek philosophy that has stood the test of time because of its practical approach to life's challenges. At its core, Stoicism teaches that while we cannot control the external world, we can control our responses to it. The Stoic foundation is built upon 4 cardinal virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. These virtues guide Stoics toward living a life of reason, self-discipline, and virtue. Stoics believe that happiness is not derived from external circumstances, but from cultivating an inner tranquility that allows us to respond to life's trials with composure and wisdom. This perspective brings us to one of the most powerful and underappreciated tools in the Stoic toolkit: silence. For Stoics, silence is not merely the absence of noise or speech. It is an intentional and active practice that plays a crucial role in achieving self-mastery. At its most fundamental level, silence helps individuals center themselves, maintain control over their emotions, and cultivate wisdom. In a world filled with distractions and external pressures, the Stoic ideal is one where we can retreat inwardly, away from the noise, to find clarity and peace. Silence, in this context, becomes an essential practice for personal growth and resilience. The Stoic foundation. At the heart of Stoicism is the belief that we cannot control the events that happen to us, but we can control how we respond to those events. This central tenet leads to the core values of Stoicism: virtue, control, wisdom, and acceptance. Stoics believe that virtue, living in accordance with reason and nature, is the only true good, and everything else, including wealth, health, and reputation, is indifferent. These externals are beyond our control and thus cannot determine our happiness. Control, for Stoics, refers to the ability to regulate one's thoughts, actions, and emotions. It is the cultivation of inner peace and strength that allows individuals to remain unshaken in the face of adversity. Wisdom is the capacity to discern what is truly important in life, and acceptance is the ability to recognize and embrace the things we cannot change. Silence is an extension of these values, a tool for cultivating emotional control and wisdom. In the absence of constant chatter, distractions, and external pressures, silence allows the individual to remain connected to their true self, where reason and virtue can guide their actions. Through silence, Stoics are able to step back from the world's noise and focus on what truly matters, how they choose to respond to life's challenges. Silence as a Stoic tool. For Stoic philosophers like Seneca and Marcus Aurelius, silence was not just a passive state, but an active choice that demonstrated inner strength and self-discipline. In a world that constantly demands attention and action, choosing silence allows an individual to exercise control over their impulses and emotions. Silence becomes a tool for reflection, self-awareness, and emotional regulation. Seneca, in his letters, often emphasizes the importance of self-control and reflection. He writes, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." This suggests that much of the turmoil we experience is a result of our overactive minds, fueled by unchecked thoughts and worries. Silence, in this case, provides the space needed to detach from these anxieties and gain clarity. By stepping back from the noise of daily life, we can separate ourselves from our emotions, allowing us to respond rationally rather than react impulsively. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, frequently used silence as a means of maintaining his emotional equilibrium. In his meditations, he reflects on the power of silence to center the mind and preserve inner peace. He writes, "If someone is able to show you that what you are doing is not right, kindly correct yourself and follow the truth." Marcus Aurelius understood that silence provided the clarity needed to receive criticism, reflect on one's actions, and course-correct without defensiveness. In his role as emperor, where decisions had profound consequences, silence allowed him to step away from the pressures of leadership and focus on acting with wisdom and integrity. Epictetus, another central Stoic figure, is often quoted saying, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." This idea echoes the Stoic belief in detachment from external desires and the importance of mastering one's inner state. For Epictetus, silence was a way to maintain that detachment. By silencing the mind and quieting the noise of external desires, one could focus on the only thing truly under control, their own actions and attitudes. Key Stoic figures and their approach to silence. The three most prominent Stoic figures, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, each approached silence in a unique way, but all shared a belief in its power to foster inner peace, resilience, and clarity. Marcus Aurelius, as a ruler, faced the constant demands of leadership, war, and politics. Despite the external chaos surrounding him, he wrote his Meditations as a form of personal reflection and self-guidance. His thoughts, often written in the midst of conflict, reveal his belief that silence was essential for maintaining control over his emotions and ensuring rational decision-making. He frequently turned inward to find peace amidst the external storm, illustrating how silence was a vital tool for him to lead with wisdom and fairness. Seneca, a statesman and philosopher, was no stranger to the demands of public life. However, he also understood the importance of withdrawing into silence to cultivate wisdom. In his Letters to Lucilius, he discusses the value of solitude and quiet reflection, arguing that silence allows us to confront our thoughts and refine our character. Seneca saw silence as a powerful tool for detaching from the distractions of the world and aligning one's actions with virtue. His writings encourage us to seek inner peace through self-examination, urging us to use silence not just to rest, but to strengthen our moral resolve. Epictetus, a former slave who became a prominent Stoic teacher, placed great emphasis on the importance of controlling our thoughts and emotions. For him, silence was an opportunity to quiet the mind and focus on what truly matters, our ability to control our reactions. Epictetus is known for his practical approach to Stoicism, and he often spoke of the need to silence the mind in order to stay centered in the face of adversity. He viewed silence as a tool for cultivating resilience, helping individuals to endure hardship with grace and dignity. The role of silence in building resilience. Silence is a crucial tool in building emotional resilience, especially in the face of life's inevitable challenges. In times of crisis, silence allows us to pause, reflect, and avoid rash reactions. It creates the space for clarity of thought, enabling us to respond thoughtfully rather than impulsively. Resilience, from a Stoic perspective, is not about avoiding hardship, but about learning how to endure it with strength and composure. Silence helps us to maintain our inner balance and to stay grounded, even in the most trying of circumstances. For example, when faced with criticism or conflict, silence provides an opportunity to detach from the emotional charge of the situation. Instead of reacting with anger or defensiveness, we can use the silence to pause, reflect, and choose a measured response. In this way, silence becomes a means of controlling our emotional state, allowing us to navigate difficult situations without being overwhelmed by them. Additionally, silence helps to build clarity of mind, allowing us to see a situation for what it truly is, free from the distortions of our emotions. In the Stoic view, resilience is about accepting the things we cannot control and focusing on our ability to respond with wisdom. Silence offers the space to practice this acceptance, helping us to develop a mindset that is less reactive and more thoughtful. By integrating silence into our daily lives, we can cultivate a sense of inner peace and strength that enhances our resilience. In this way, silence becomes not only a tool for self-mastery, but also a means of developing the emotional fortitude needed to face life's challenges with grace and poise. Listening, in the Stoic sense, is not simply hearing words. It is the active and deliberate process of truly understanding and contemplating what is being said. Epicurus once wisely remarked, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen more than we speak." This simple statement speaks volumes about the power of listening as an art. To listen attentively is to engage with the speaker's ideas on a deeper level, to respond not only with your ears but with your mind and heart. In the Stoic tradition, listening is a powerful tool for cultivating self-control, learning, and understanding, enabling one to shape their responses with wisdom and clarity. Unlike passive hearing, which involves only processing sounds, true listening involves actively focusing, reflecting, and integrating the information being shared. For Stoics, listening is an act of discipline and mindfulness. By silencing the internal chatter of our own thoughts, we are better able to focus fully on the speaker and the message they are conveying. In this way, silence plays a central role in listening. By quieting our own impulses to respond, we allow space for a deeper connection with the speaker and a clearer understanding of their words. This practice aligns perfectly with Stoic values, such as patience, wisdom, and control. The act of listening, when done mindfully, not only enhances our ability to understand others, but also strengthens our own self-mastery. Silence in listening is an incredibly subtle but effective way to control the dynamics of a conversation. When we choose to listen attentively, without the urge to interrupt or immediately respond, we shift the power dynamics in the interaction. The one who listens controls the conversation without ever speaking a word. This might sound counterintuitive, but there is a profound strength in listening, particularly when you are not distracted by the need to dominate the conversation or assert your own views. When we remain silent and truly listen, we create an environment where the other person feels heard and understood, which naturally fosters respect and trust. This dynamic positions the listener in a place of influence. Without having to assert their own agenda, the listener gains valuable insight into the speaker's thoughts and feelings. By showing genuine interest and attentiveness, we not only build rapport, but also open the door to a deeper level of communication. In essence, silence in listening allows us to hold a space of power, where we are not reacting impulsively, but thoughtfully absorbing information. In conversations, silence can be a tool for patience and restraint. By exercising control over our desire to speak, we create space for the other person to express themselves fully, and in doing so, we demonstrate our respect for their thoughts. This control over our impulses is a quintessential Stoic practice, allowing us to remain centered and not be swayed by the rush of emotions or the temptation to dominate a conversation. Being a better listener requires intentional practice. In everyday conversations, it's easy to fall into the trap of focusing on what we're going to say next, rather than truly engaging with what the other person is expressing. However, by practicing active listening, we can gain more profound insights, improve our relationships, and influence the course of our conversations in meaningful ways. Here are a few practical tips for mastering the art of listening. 1. Avoid interrupting. One of the simplest yet most powerful ways to improve your listening skills is to avoid interrupting. Interrupting signals to the other person that you are more interested in your own thoughts than in what they are saying. It disrupts the flow of the conversation and may prevent you from fully understanding their perspective. Stoic thinkers like Seneca often emphasize the value of patience. Waiting for the right moment to speak allows us to listen without the impulse to immediately jump in. Practicing this can help you learn the difference between hearing and truly understanding. 2. Pay attention to non-verbal cues. Often, what is not said speaks louder than words. Paying attention to body language, facial expressions, and tone of voice can provide insights into the speaker's emotions and intentions. Stoicism teaches us to observe without judgment, which is essential when interpreting non-verbal cues. By carefully noting the other person's body language, you can better gauge their true feelings and respond with empathy and thoughtfulness. 3. Resist the urge to dominate the conversation with your own words. It's easy to steer the conversation towards yourself, particularly if you're eager to share your own experiences or opinions. However, a truly effective listener avoids this temptation. When we listen without the urge to interject with our own stories or opinions, we give the other person the space to be heard. This restraint aligns with the Stoic value of humility, recognizing that we do not need to be the center of attention. By resisting the impulse to dominate the conversation, we can deepen our understanding and allow the conversation to unfold naturally. Listening attentively is often a silent act, but it holds immense strength and influence. When we give someone our full attention, we open the door to a deeper understanding and connection. In relationships, whether personal or professional, feeling heard is one of the most powerful ways to build trust and rapport. People naturally gravitate toward those who listen with genuine interest, as it fosters a sense of validation and respect. The act of truly listening demonstrates that we value the other person's perspective, and in doing so, we create an environment where they are more likely to be open and honest with us in return. Moreover, attentive listening provides valuable insights that would otherwise be missed if we were preoccupied with formulating our next response. It allows us to absorb more than just the surface-level content of the conversation. By listening deeply, we can discern underlying feelings, motivations, and unspoken concerns. This gives us the ability to respond not only with more wisdom, but with more relevance, creating conversations that are more meaningful and productive. In leadership and influence, listening is often one of the most effective tools for gaining trust and shaping outcomes. The ability to listen attentively and understand another person's point of view without rushing to offer advice or judgment shows that we are not only in control of ourselves, but also of the situation at hand. This type of listening fosters a sense of mutual respect and opens the door to collaboration and understanding. Ultimately, mastering the art of listening is a critical component of Stoic practice. It allows us to engage with the world in a more measured, thoughtful way, enabling us to act with greater wisdom and influence. Silence in listening empowers us to understand others deeply, respond with intention, and build relationships that are grounded in mutual respect and trust. Through this practice, we can navigate conversations with greater control, clarity, and grace. In our fast-paced, conversation-driven world, silence often feels like an uncomfortable void to be filled. Whether in social interactions, business meetings, or casual encounters, most people instinctively rush to speak when there's a lull, almost as if the silence itself is something to be avoided at all costs. But why do we fear silence so much? And what does this fear reveal about us? The answer lies in our discomfort with stillness and our resistance to being present in the moment. When we rush to fill silence, we reveal a deeper discomfort with pausing and reflecting. Instead of embracing the opportunity for quiet contemplation, we mistakenly equate silence with awkwardness, tension, or failure. At its core, the anxiety we feel around silence reflects a lack of self-assurance. We fear that the absence of words will make us seem disengaged, uninterested, or awkward. The urge to fill silence is often driven by the need to maintain control over the situation, to keep things moving, and to avoid any feelings of vulnerability that might arise from being still. This fear is especially present in social and professional environments where there's a constant pressure to be on, to keep the conversation flowing, and to avoid any moments of uncomfortable stillness. Yet, this tendency to fill silence is a sign of weakness, not strength. It shows a lack of confidence in being fully present and comfortable with what is. Silence doesn't require immediate action or response. It simply calls for us to exist in the moment, without the need to fill the space with words. The discomfort people feel in silence often stems from an inner fear of being vulnerable or disconnected from the situation. But silence, in fact, offers us the freedom to truly listen, reflect, and respond with thoughtfulness, rather than reacting impulsively. In this way, silence becomes a tool of power and self-control, allowing us to pause, assess, and choose how to engage with the world around us. Seneca, one of the most prominent Stoic philosophers, was no stranger to the value of silence in moments of discomfort. In his letters and writings, Seneca often explored the nature of emotions and how they influence our thoughts and actions. He understood that silence could be a powerful ally in facing discomfort, particularly when the urge to fill the space with words or actions was strong. According to Seneca, the discomfort we feel in silence is largely a product of our imagination and our fear of facing our own thoughts. Seneca taught that much of the anxiety we associate with silence comes from the tension between our inner selves and the external world. In moments of silence, we are forced to confront our own emotions, uncertainties, and vulnerabilities. This confrontation can feel uncomfortable, especially when we're not accustomed to sitting with our thoughts. However, Seneca believed that this discomfort was mostly imagined and that silence, when embraced, could actually bring about greater clarity and self-understanding. In letters to Lucilius, Seneca writes, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality." Seneca's teachings on silence revolve around the idea that we need to learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Rather than fleeing from silence or filling it with unnecessary words, he encouraged us to embrace the stillness, to let it be a space for self-reflection, and to see it as an opportunity for growth. Silence offers us a chance to listen, not just to others, but to our own thoughts and emotions. It allows us to disengage from the noise of the world and focus on what is truly important without the pressure to constantly fill the void with commentary. The discomfort we feel in silence, Seneca argued, is often a result of the mind's restlessness. In order to achieve inner peace, we must learn to quiet the mind and be present in the moment. Silence becomes a training ground for cultivating emotional discipline and mental clarity. By facing silence without fear, we allow ourselves the space to reflect, recharge, and act with intention rather than being driven by impulse or external expectations. For Seneca, this was an essential part of Stoic practice, learning to remain calm and centered in any situation, including those filled with awkward silences. The fear of silence is, in many ways, an illusion. As Seneca suggested, the discomfort that arises when there is no conversation to fill the space is often a product of our own overactive imaginations. We fear what silence might mean about us, whether it signifies a lack of interest, a loss of control, or a breakdown in communication. Yet, the reality is that silence is not a void, but a fertile ground for connection, understanding, and self-mastery. To overcome the fear of silence, it's essential to shift our perspective. Instead of viewing silence as a negative space to be avoided, we should begin to see it as a powerful tool for growth. Silence offers us the opportunity to listen deeply, to reflect on our own thoughts, and to make more thoughtful decisions. In social situations, for example, rather than rushing to fill every pause with our own words, we can use the silence as a moment of reflection, both on what the other person is saying and on how we want to respond. This approach fosters more meaningful conversations as we are able to listen more intently and speak with more purpose.